Hey, Rascal, how's it going? I hope you're having a good week. Hi, folks. I hope everyone is having a good week this week so far. I think I have. Yeah, Rascal, that was one of the things that I thought about. Yeah, so we are using ChatGPT today, or we will be, and yeah, it can be somewhat unreliable. So I am actually really excited for this stream because I think it's going to be chaotic in one way or the other. Who knows? Either because of the results that we get back from ChatGPT or just because of ChatGPT itself misbehaving. So I'm actually kind of pumped because this might be a disaster, and that's okay if it is. What? Wade, thank you so much for the Prime sub. My goodness. Wow, thank you, Wade. And Wade used their Prime subscription, which, if you are an Amazon Prime subscriber, you have a free Prime subscription that you can give to the streamer of your choice. Doesn't have to be me, could be anybody that you enjoy, but you don't have to pay for a subscription. So definitely use that Prime sub. Support your favorite streamer. Thank you so much, Wade K. I appreciate it so much. Yeah, ChatGPT is a blast, and I cannot wait to use it today uh, to live generate some code. We'll see how it goes. Alrighty, well, the timer has counted down, so it is time to get started. I'm going to switch my screen. All right. Hi, folks. Once again, I hope everyone had an excellent week so far. And I know that I spent a lot of my day yesterday experimenting with Chat GPT. So I'm assuming that most folks here probably have at least heard of Chat GPT. It is an AI natural language processing model, and it's the latest iteration of these sort of AI tools that have been very popular lately. It's by far the most popular AI tool, but it can do more than just generate, like chat, right? It's more than just a chat bot. Those classic chat bots that you used to play around with. This particular language model can actually also generate code, which is what we're going to do today. So there's been a lot of concern about Chat GPT in the media and all this, and in general discourse about, oh no, developers are going to be out of a job, right? Developers are going to be Chat GPT is going to take our jobs. And today we're going to check and see if that is really true. If is that true? Can Chat GPT just be a web developer, right? Can Is it going to take our jobs for real? I think you'll be satisfied with the answer. And I won't keep you in suspense. The short answer is no, it can't. But what it can do is be a yet another tool in our tool belt to help us um, develop faster, more efficiently, and generate better code. So that's what we're going to do today. This might be a little bit chaotic. We'll see. As I mentioned before, ChatGPT can sometimes just stop working, get overwhelmed, stop generating an answer in the middle of generating an answer. And it can sometimes, get a little bit off the rails as far as what you ask it. So we'll see. But yeah, either way, I think it'll be fun. And it'll help us test our troubleshooting skills. So I will say I have done some work yesterday. basically making three. So what we're going to do today is we are going to build a like a website for a dog groomer. Mostly because my dog needs a new groomer, and so I have it on the brain. But we're going to be building a website for a dog groomer, and that website is going to have the services that this groomer offers, and then it's going to have a form where people can sign up to request those services at a certain day at a certain time. So they'll be able to select the service they want. They'll be able to select the day, time, you know, put in their information, and then that information is going to need to go to a server, and then that information is going to need to get saved into a database. And an administrator or somebody, the owner of the business or whatever, should be able to then see all of the requests that have come in so far, and then contact those people back. So that's the goal: is to make a website that allows users to see the services offered, enter their information, pass that information into a server, have that information be stored in a database, and then which then can be retrieved and displayed back to the owner on a separate page, to then show them all the requests that have come in. Hey, welcome Bector and welcome Frazee. Good to see you again. I hope you're doing well. This should be a fun one today, however it goes. So yeah, any questions before we get started? And like I was saying yesterday, I have basically done some practice runs with this, and the results have been very interesting. So I basically just did those practice runs to kind of see how ChatGPT would respond to certain requests, and the things that it would probably get right and the things that it wouldn't get right. So basically, I've done 3 practice rounds on this app already, built it out, got it working. And each time ChatGPT has responded differently. So each time I did this, even though if I made very similar requests each time, I ended up with a different version of the app each time. So I'm really curious to see what we get today. This is going to be really fun. Yeah, let's go ahead and do it. All right, I'm going to do a quick moderation action here. 1 second. All right, there we go. All set. Right? Dang promo bots. Hi, Chris. How you doing? I hope your week's been going well. Hey, Adil. All right, so let's get going. ChatGPT. We already talked about what it is, what it does, but if you're coming in now, feel free to ask questions at any point. If you want to learn more about ChatGPT, how it works, how it came about, how did we get here to where we are today, I highly recommend this article by Ars Technica. Which is a wonderful history of um, chatbots, AI, how language processing models work. So I'm sharing this in chat. If you want to check it out, it's an excellent history of basically this tool and how we got to where we are. Your puppy says, I would like to offer my view as a viewer. Hey, that's all I ask. Thank you, Poppy. That's much better than any promo bot could ever give me. Hey, Antasha. All right. So, how do we get started? Well, with ChatGPT, it's very simple. I'm just curious. So we've got a few viewers in here now. How many of you? So, if you have used ChatGPT before, just say yes in chat, and if you haven't, just say no. I'm just curious as to the ratio that we've got here. We've got a lot of people who are familiar with ChatGPT. Yes, 5 minutes only. Okay, so we got a good mix. We've got a good mix. Okay, awesome. Well, it's very easy to use. I would recommend it actually. ChatGPT is very easy. You can just go to chat.openai.com/chat. And I signed up with my Google account, so very easy to do that as well. And then after that, you can simply go in and start chatting with it. Oh, you're happy. You got your job. You got the job as the lamp stack dev. That's freaking rad. That's awesome. Great work, Pappy. Congratulations. Thank you so much for letting me know. That's awesome. Yeah. If you have a Google account, you can sign in with Google. So we can see, and once you get into the Chat GPT page, you can have multiple chats open at a time. So you can see some of the stuff I was doing yesterday is here. um, and just playing around with stuff. And you can have separate chats on different topics. Yeah. And Adil says it's not behind a paywall now. No, as of today. So, and also for those of you watching this in the future on YouTube, today is February 5th. So, as of today, February 5th, 2023, this is still free, and we are using the January 30th release of ChatGPT. So, by the time you're watching this on YouTube, it might be even better than it is now, or behind a paywall. But as of now, it is free. All right, so let's get started. How do we talk to ChatGPT? Well, it is a natural language processing model. So what that means, it can understand and parse. Well, I shouldn't say understand. It can parse um, natural requests as if you were asking them in English, and it can basically determine the intent behind the request and then deliver a natural response or a natural sounding response. Yeah. Okay, so and yeah, we got a good mixture of folks who have and haven't used this. So what I'm going to ask it to do, and so I think the coolest thing about ChatGPT and what sets it apart from other chatbots is that it can also generate code. And so what we're going to do first is we're just going to generate basically static versions of the site that we want to make. So basically just a static HTML and CSS page. And we'll get the fields that we want in our form. We'll just kind of set the groundwork for setting up our full stack application. So we're going to, in this case, we're going to do front end first, um, front end and styling, get a static site set up. And then after that, we'll move on to our server because ChatGPT can build you a server as well. It can build you a Node and Express server, and it can even help you hook up to a MongoDB database. So it can do the whole shebang. We're going to try to avoid writing as much code as we can today. All right, so how do we get started? Well, we can just tell it to generate. And I do have a little bit of a script that I'm following, although we will probably deviate from this script as we go. It is not set in stone. I'm just following some guidelines that I came up with to help us with this development. So yeah, well, it does that now. What about 5 years from now? Exactly. We can tell it to generate HTML and CSS for a professional dog grooming website that offers multiple services. And so, what I'm thinking again is a professional looking site, offers multiple dog grooming services. I want that offers multiple services. Each service should probably have a description, right? To tell the user, tell the customer what they're requesting. Each service should have a description. Um, and then down at the bottom, um, I want a form where people can request services. So they want a nail trim for their dog, they want a haircut. They should be able to put in their name, a phone number, email, whatever, request a day, request a time, and maybe some notes like if their dog is afraid or needs peanut butter to get their nails trimmed or something like that. They should be able to note that. Yes, we will define this as the homepage. Not right away. We will do that though. That's a great thing to point out. We're going to define it as the homepage, and we're going to even ChatGPT will even understand how to render it as the homepage. Once we get to the server, we'll define this as the homepage and have ChatGPT render it for us. So that's the cool part. It just knows this stuff, which is friggin' rad. All right, so each service has a description. There should be a form on the page. That allows users to request the available services. So what we're doing here is we're also testing ChatGPT's grasp of context, right? So here we're saying, all right, multiple services. So I'm sure that ChatGPT can come up with services. But here now we're saying the form on the page should allow users to request the available services. So ChatGPT has to remember, oh yeah, they said you want services. It should understand that that form should contain the same services. So context. All right. The form should contain input fields for the user's name. We'll say phone number, email, a date picker, picker, and a time picker. Okay. Um, a time picker. Actually, no. When we want a note field there as well. So I'm going to say a time picker, um, and a long text field for notes, because if they have multiple notes, we want them to have room enough to write them. Hey Gargoyle, welcome. First time viewer, you picked a great stream to start with. We are having fun with ChatGPT today, having it build us a full stack app. So thank you so much for joining. All right. And then finally, the last thing that I want to specify here is that the form should be set up to submit the data to a, we'll say, JS server. So with that last sentence, what I did there is I made sure that the form will hopefully contain a post method and then an action with a path that's going to be set up to submit to a server, so the server can read that action path. So let's see what it gives us. Now it might crap out halfway through. We can regenerate the answer if we need to. Oh, thank you, Gargoyle. Glad you feel welcome. All right, let's go. Here we go. Let's see what we get. I do not know what we're going to get. All right, so we can see that it already is setting up our default header. And look, see here, we asked it to also generate CSS. So it's given us a set link to our style sheet already. We've got an H1. We've got a nav bar. Look at that. Look at the nav bar. Oh, this is nice. We've got a section for services. So Steroid says a good note would be fluffy can only be groomed to smooth jazz. Nice. Yeah, so it's giving us here it's giving us a list, and in this list, each list has an H3, and underneath that each H3 we have paragraphs which are describing the services. So it's doing what I told it to do. It is giving this list of services at the top, followed by description of each service, followed by a form. Yeah, so this form has an action and a method. The action is probably going to have to be modified to be a proper path for our server, but that's okay. Hey, Antonio, there will be another 100 devs cohort, if that's what you're asking. There will be another 100 devs cohort at some point. However, I do not have a date for that at the moment. Leon is being very careful about restructuring things and making things as good as they can be before we get the next cohort. Okay, so notice that it generated my HTML, which is rad. So I'm going to go ahead and grab the HTML, just all of it. We'll run this in a minute and we'll see how it looks. But I'm just going to trust. I'm not going to make any modifications here. I'm going to drop it into VS Code. And then I'm going to go ahead and also create my, let's see what it linked to here. Linked to style.css. All right. Style.css. And notice that it stopped generating, right? It just kind of crud it out here. So that's okay. So sometimes ChatGPT does that. It runs out of steam halfway through. But we can just say, show me the CSS again, please. Yeah, and that's okay. If it stops, you can just tell it what part you want to see again. So show me the CSS again, please. It'll just regenerate the CSS for you without regenerating everything. So that's what you got to do sometimes when you get into these longer responses. Oh, and Rascal says, whenever it stops, you can say continue or next. It basically has a text response limit. Okay, that's good to know. I'm just usually polite and ask it, and say please and ask it to show me again, and that seems to work. But good to know it actually has a hard cutoff. We can see it's giving us all those annoying things about CSS that you're just like, ugh, this is so repetitive and annoying. Here we have auto-generated CSS for us, styling on it. So what it's doing here too is because I requested the HTML and the CSS at the same time, it is linking that styling to the correct elements in our HTML. All right. So I'm going to grab this code, and actually you can just click on the copy code button here, drop it into my CSS. Hide this. All right. Save and save. Okay. Oh, thank you for the hydrate. I've got some tea here. I remember to make tea this time. Swan says, yesterday I told it was smart and it said thank you. Yeah, it's pretty good at natural conversation as well. Yeah, and it's probably best to be polite to these types of tools just in case. Yeah. All right, here we go. We're going to run it with live server, so because we don't have an actual server yet, so we can't, nothing is listening for the port. So I'm going to use the live server extension in VS Code. I'm clicking on it now. You can't see it, but it's behind my head. So let's see. Oh, hello. Looky there. Nice. So we've got a fairly nicely styled little app here. Let's see. And I want to see how responsive it is. So if I change the size on this, yeah, so everything is centered. That's good. I really didn't know what I was going to get. I might want to add some color to this. I'm thinking maybe you can see it's even got a copyright line down at the bottom. Very professional. All right. And the submit button has been styled, right? That's not the submit button. It's been the regular submit button. It's been styled almost like a bootstrap kind of a styling look. Could be. Yeah. So let's add, but I want to tweak this just a little bit. Let's add some color to the nav bar, and then yeah, and we're gonna do that. We're gonna add some more styling to this, so we can ask it to modify the styling we've been given. Whoops, sorry. So I'm gonna say I'm just gonna say, all right, let's make the nav bar light blue and add a solid, let's see, add a box with a black border around, around the form. The box should have a drop shadow. Yeah, let's do that. So I'm going to add a box with a drop shadow around the form, and then nav bar light blue. All right, let's see what it does. And it's giving us updated CSS. So we'll give that a second to generate. Because if y'all are regular viewers of mine, you know that I hate styling stuff. So this is like a godsend to me. Yeah, Stare Droid says, make it look pricey, robot. Yeah. Well, you notice that's basically what I did in the initial request, is I said, give me a professional looking site. Or I can push this code to a GitHub repo, but I think you probably might get more out of it if you went to ChatGPT and had ChatGPT generate some code for you. Try that out. That's kind of the goal of today's stream, is to show you how you can utilize ChatGPT to do this stuff yourself if you want to. All right, there we go. Now let's see what that did. Sometimes it doesn't understand. Sometimes it gets it wrong, but we'll see. All right, gonna drop this in, replacing the old, save that, go back here. Yeah, there we go. So it made my nav bar light blue, and it put a box around the form. There's a little bit of an issue there with but look, but it did what I asked, right? It put a box around the form. It added a drop shadow to the box. There's a little bit of an issue with the form width here. We can add some padding probably to the inside of the box to fix that. Scotty, that's funny. Oh yeah, absolutely. So, Rascal, that's a great idea. So maybe at the end of this, when we're done, we could have ChatGPT tell us exactly how to push our code to GitHub. I mean, I already know, but again, this is another way you can use ChatGPT to educate yourself on stuff that you don't know previously. Um, we'll need to add some padding. Yeah, we can do that. So we'll see if it. Let's see. I'm gonna be in this next um, request that I make. I'm gonna be ambiguous. I'm gonna say add padding inside the box. Add padding inside the box. So number one, um, ChatGPT has to decide how much padding to add. And then number two, ChatGPT has to understand what I mean when I say the box, right? It has to understand the context of what I did what I asked it to do previously, right? So I'm not being specific here on purpose because I want to see if it gets it, if it understands what I asked. Yeah, so while it's generating that, I can grab, so if people are curious about what I've asked it before, um, I can share that with you. So I'll grab this. Bombaloni, if you reload the page, that might help. Sometimes ChatGPT can flake out. That's not you, that's just ChatGPT. So this is the first thing I requested from ChatGPT to generate the initial HTML CSS. And then after that, so I asked I had to have it show me the CSS again. And then my second request was this. And now I said, for my third request, I said this. So those are my last three things that I asked. Now let's see if it understood. And it may not. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it gets it wrong. But we've been pretty good so far. All right. Ha ha ha, baby. Look at that. So it took that incredibly ambiguous statement of mine, which was add padding inside the box. It had to understand how much padding would look good, right? How much padding should it add? Who knows? What box am I talking about? Who knows? But through context, it understood what I wanted. So here we go. I think this looks pretty good. It's very basic, sure, but you could add, and you could go through and have additional requests, right? You could add boxes with borders, you could add background colors, you could add images, photos, that kind of thing. I'm going to leave this somewhat basic, um, just because if we have to regenerate it later, I want it to be, not take 6 hours to do. So, but I think this looks decent. These are links here. They don't link to anything at the moment. Um, Actually, wait, no, they do. These are linked to, check it out. So these links up top. They're linked to the section on the page. It auto links to the page section. So if you added more page sections, you could add more links to the nav bar, so people could quickly navigate to a certain point on the page. Bumbloni says mine has de-shedding. Yeah. So the results that you get, yours will not equal mine. Because ChatGPT is just pulling from a massive bank of knowledge. And so even if you ask the exact same questions, you'll probably not get the exact same results. So each time I've redone this app, it's turned out differently. Yes, it is lovely, isn't it? All right. One thing I want to change in the HTML, just because we're putting a server on this, right now, the um, the form action says submit.js, which is not what I want. I actually want more of like a path, like to go to a server. So I'm going to update this form action. So I'm just going to say update the form action to, we'll call it, uh, yeah, we'll say, just call it like submit request. Or I'm going to call it service request. Service request. So it's going to go to the path service request, and our server will be set up to handle that path. All right. So now I'm switching gears and I'm going from the CSS back to the HTML. So it's giving me just a code snippet for only the form. All right. So I can go ahead and grab this. Well, it's still working, but I'm just going to grab that part. There we go. Thank you for the follow, Shaheen. Thank you for the follow, Team Y. Good to have you guys here. All right, it's almost done. And I could have very easily just changed that myself, right? I didn't have to ask it for that. But what I'm doing, and it's important to remember this, what I'm doing is I am making sure that ChatGPT now has a record of those changes. So now when I ask it for something later, it will know that this path has been updated to service request. And so it won't try to use the old path. It will know that, yeah, this is the path that I want. And so that way we don't run into problems later on as we make this more complex. Okay, so we've got our HTML, we've got our CSS. Now, let's go ahead and build a server. Oh, thank you for the first try. Yeah, no, it's going well so far. I wasn't sure if we'd get past the static site portion, so we're doing pretty well. And by the way, we just generated a fully functioning static website. So and it took us what, 30 minutes? No, like 15 minutes, because I spent the first 15 minutes talking. So 15 minutes, static site, boom. Mm-hmm. And you can even have it do things like add stock images for you. It will do that. So it'll go out there and it'll find images on stock image websites and dump them in, with varying results, but it can do it. Okay, so let's build a server. So how do we do that? Can it just create new images? So RatsQ, that's an excellent question. RatsQ asks, so can't it just create new images? This particular engine is specifically tuned for language processing, code, English, written languages, that kind of thing. There are other models out there that can generate images for you, such as Stable Diffusion or even DALL-E, which is owned by the same company as OpenAI. Right now, those are different models. ChatGPT is different from DALL-E, but I'm sure at some point they will merge into one horrifically intelligent entity. Yeah, or Stable Diffusion, which is actually a channel point reward on my channel. All right, so how do we build a server? Well, all we need to do is tell it to implement a server for the form endpoint. So what we're doing here is we're saying, all right, ChatGPT, build me a server and associate it with the form that you've already created for me. But we want to be specific here. We want to say, because ChatGPT again doesn't know what's in my head, right? I need to tell it. So I'm going to tell it to use specifically Node.js and Express. So that way it's going to generate the type of server that we're used to seeing. It's going to use JavaScript. It's going to use Node. It's going to use Express. And I also want to be able to use things like environment variables and cross-origin requests. So I'm going to also say the server should also use cores and .env. The server should submit the form data. This is where it gets cool. Form data to a MongoDB Atlas. Sorry, I can't spell. Atlas database. Using async functions. I'll tell you why I'm specifying these things in just a second, but I can't talk and type. So the MongoDB connection information is stored in an environment variable called MongoDB URI. And yeah, we'll leave it at that for now. So what I'm doing here is I'm saying, all right, set up a server for me using Node and Express. So it's going to set up a JavaScript server using Node and Express, also with cores and .env. So I can use an environment variable. And then I'm specifically telling it where I want that form data to go. So that form data should go to MongoDB, but specifically MongoDB Atlas. That's the cloud version of MongoDB that we're used to connecting to. Because when I didn't specify MongoDB Atlas in a previous version, it tried to submit it to like a local hosted version of MongoDB. So I had to say, all right, MongoDB Atlas, and then also async functions, because we know that when we're talking to a database, it's best practice to wait until that database responds, right? Before we proceed with any, page loads or messages or anything like that. But ChatGPT doesn't understand that. So when I previously generated this, it didn't use async functions to talk to the database. And so you could get yourself in trouble that way. So let's see what it gives us here. And also I've specified the name of my connection variable here. Um, and so it should pull that, it should understand what I'm saying, and it should pull that information in as well. So let's see what we get. Ah, interesting. It's choosing to use Mongoose. I didn't tell it, right? I didn't tell it to use Mongoose, did I? So here it's listening to me. It's saying, all right, express cores.env, and it chose Mongoose as the best option to accomplish what I want to accomplish. It's setting up the .env config. It's setting up the middleware here. It's setting up the Mongoose connection using the environment variable I told it to. It's setting up a schema. It's setting up a model. And it's setting up a post request using a try catch block, handling the errors. Oh, that's rad. And it's set up our listen. So we're listening, we can be listening on port 3000. Yeah. So check that out. Check that out. It chose to use MongoDB, or sorry, it chose to use Mongoose as the best way to connect to MongoDB. It pulled in the environment variable that I told it to. It set up a schema for us. I would think we probably would want this date to be a date, but we'll see how it looks. I'm not going to change anything yet. We'll just see what it does. It's set up a schema for us. It's doing a try catch, async await, saving that form data, sending back a response, and handling errors and catching those. All right. I think, let's see. I need to see if I have any previous versions of this running. We'll see if I can open port 3000, but yeah. Bumbaloni says, interesting. Mine did not use Mongoose. Interesting. So you can tell it. So you can tell it to use Mongoose like manually. That's what I had to do in previous versions of this. Is I had to specify, okay, please use Mongoose to connect and save the data. So definitely try that. Ask it to use Mongoose instead. Say, please use Mongoose. I would suggest saying something like, here's what I had to say previously. Update the server to use Mongoose to save the form data to MongoDB. The save function should be asynchronous and should use try catch blocks. So I just specified that I want it to use Mongoose, I want it to be asynchronous, and I wanted it to use try catch blocks. But try it yourself. I mean, you can't do anything wrong, right? You can always ask it to amend the code to do what you want. So here's what I asked it in the last round. So if anybody's following along, you can see that. And if your version of ChatGPT did not use Mongoose and you would like it to, you can ask this. So feel free to grab those statements and try them yourself. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and dump this code in. And get this back up here. Hey, Hassler, I hope your day is going well. Edward says, maybe it remembers you asked for Mongoose before. So I actually deliberately started a new chat here. So I didn't think it remembered. I didn't think it remembered what I asked, like between chats. I didn't think it had that context. From what I understand, individual chat is its own entity, right? And it only remembers context within that chat itself. I could be wrong though. Who knows? It could be the way I asked the question. It could be random chance. I don't know. So I'm going to grab this and I'm going to do my server.js and drop in the code. There we go. Okay, and you'll notice that in my version, I already have a .env file, so you will need that. That's one thing you're going to have to do manually, is you will need your .env file. So go ahead and create that if you haven't already. .env, and then inside of there, you'll have a variable called, as long as it matches what's in your code, it doesn't matter. And I have my connection string here for my database. So it can't generate this for you. You have to, grab that. And I've already dropped it in. Now, if you do not want this app to write to a test database, if you want to set up your own database name, don't forget that you will have to specify it in the connection string itself. So this is going to be some of the only code that we'll write ourselves, is this connection string, and then set up our database name. So I'm going to call it something like, I don't know, dog groom requests. Dog groom, maybe, I don't know, dog groom site. Yeah. That looks weird. I don't like it. We'll just call it Chat GPT site demo. That's what I'm going to call mine. All right, save that. Yeah, it looks like random chance, right? Yeah, that's what I was thinking, Rascal. As far as what I read, it's all random chance what you get. So in this case, it just decided to clean pet. There you go. You could call it whatever. If you come up with a clever business name, that's what you could call your database. Clean puppy. Yeah. Yeah. Let me make sure I didn't miss anything here in chat before we try this. Now, AO says ChatGPT is helping me with Tailwind. That's rad. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for the follow, Manver. Yes, and Pogan says, as Microsoft is kind of sponsor of ChatGPT, I expect the search bar we see now in your Windows will be connected to this. Absolutely. Microsoft has I guess purchased entered a partnership with ChatGPT or OpenAI, and will be integrating this ChatGPT into many of their services. Yeah. Okay, so we've got this now in our server. Now let's just review this real quick and see if I'm going to make this bigger. Let's see if we can spot anything that might be missing. Yeah, it looks like it's mostly visible now. Okay, so we've got all of our requires, got our .env config. Now I'm processing form data, right? I'm processing form data. I'm curious to see if this will work or not. Let's keep that in mind. I'm processing form data. Let's see if there's anything missing when we try to run this later on. It's doing mongoose.connect. It is using a slightly out of date version of the mongoose connector, right? These two options are really not necessary anymore. I'm going to leave them in place though. It set up our schema. It set everything as strings, which is probably fine. Got our model, got our post request. What's missing here? If we want to actually run this as an app, as a server, what is missing? Anybody catch what we might need to add? Am I going to be able? Oh, Ian Douglas. Thank you so much for the raid. Good to see you guys. How are you, Ian? Yeah, so what's going to happen? So I know I haven't done my npm installs yet and all that stuff. I will need to do that. what's going to happen if I try to go to localhost 3000 right now? What will I see? We can try it. It'll be fine. We can try it and see what we get. Ah, nice. See, Ian Douglas says somebody used ChatGPT, which we're using today, to pass a Google interview and get a 183K offer. Yeah. So what we are doing today is we're using ChatGPT to avoid writing code at all and build a full stack app. But we're gonna see what it can and can't do and some limitations that we might have in ChatGPT so far. So it's not a magic bullet, right? All right, let's go ahead and set this up and let's see what we get. So new terminal. I'm gonna use git bash, and I'm just gonna say, all right, npm init, like we usually do. All right, and I need to install. Let's see, what do I need? All right, express cores .env mongoose, and I'm gonna also install nodemon so we can make faster changes. All right. Thank you for the follow, Carmen. All right, so our packages are installed. So now let's see what happens if I try to go to localhost 3000 and run this thing. What do we think will happen? Let's see. Oh, I didn't do npm start. My bad. Sorry. I needed to modify. So one thing I need to do here that I forgot to do was I need to modify my start script. Go to my package.json, modify my start script, and say nodemon server.js, right? I want to run nodemon, and I'm going to do npm start. All right. Okay, so I got a deprecation warning. That's okay. It'll still work. And I see that my server is running. Uh-oh. Cannot get root. Why is that? Why can't I get slash? Anybody know? I'm going to hydrate real quick while y'all are thinking about that. Yeah, exactly. Skunkish and inadequate are correct. We currently do not, our server is running, but we don't have a route that's actually going to render the homepage, right? Because before, when we were looking at it as a static site here, and by the way, for those raiders who joined us, we generated all of this, the styling and the form, solely through ChatGPT as well. But when we were looking at this before, this is running in live server, right? This is running in live server. This is not attached to our server at all. So we need to make sure that our server has a route, a Git route for the homepage for slash. So that's very easy for us to do, fortunately. What we can do is we can just say the server should render a static file called index.html as the homepage. So I don't have to be specific. I can just say, yeah, all right, we're going to render a static file. And theoretically, what it should do is it should give us everything we need to render index.html. Now, why did I specify static file? Anybody know why did I specify static file there? What's special about static files when we're building a full stack app? What's special about static files versus say something like an EJS file or a React? Still cooking. Now we can see we have a GET request in there, and it's sending the file, and it's telling us what to do as well. So she's really testing me today. Hey, you're not gonna get to sit pretty here while ChatGPT just does everything for you. We're already starting to see some of the limitations, right? You have to know what you want. You have to know what you want and what you need first, right? And then ChatGPT can deliver it to you, but it doesn't know what you're thinking. So here's the answer to the question that I asked. Index.html, because it's a static file, it should be placed in a public folder within the root directory, right? Static files go in a public folder. So we're going to need to move our index.html to a public folder before we can get this to work. But I'm going to go ahead and copy the code, move back over here, drop it in. There we go. So a couple changes here. We've got this additional app.use statement here, express static. It's using, this dir name syntax, which is fine. You don't necessarily need this, but it'll still work. Dir name public. So I'm going to need to go ahead and create a public folder. And I'm going to move both my index.html and my style.css into that public folder. Those are static files. They belong in the public folder. Boop, boop. Okay. And I'll put my most recent request here in chat so y'all can follow along if you are following. There we go. And so, I've got my index.html and my style.css moved into my public folder. And so it's using public folder here. And when I visit the home page, it's now set up to render. It's using send file. But it's set up to basically render index.html. Yeah, so Stephen Broken says slash public seems kind of dumb. Well, it's one of those conventions, right? There's certain conventions that we have in development. You don't have to do anything, right? You can do things whatever the heck way you want. But the convention is that static files go in the public folder, and we can configure our app to read it as such, public folder, and then non-static files go elsewhere. They might go into views. So if we have some EJS, which hint we will later, we're going to have some EJS, those will go inside of a views folder. It's good to have structure to your apps, right? Okay, so one additional thing I'm going to need to do in order for this to work, I'm going to have to do one more install. So we did npm install earlier, but this is using path. So I'm just going to have to do, I think, did it have the require statement up there top? Yeah. So also notice it added a require statement for path. So I'm going to need to also install that. npm I path. Now, if you're a member of 100 devs, you might think, oh, it's doing things differently than we normally do. That's okay. We're just going to roll with it. We're gonna roll with it and see what it gives us. See if it works. All right. Save that. Save. Okay. And I'm going to restart my server. Oh, come on. It's not letting me type in my terminal. That's fun. Anybody know the escape keyboard shortcut to free up the cursor? I can't hit enter or anything. Oh no, AI is taking over. Yeah. All right, I can try a new terminal. Come on. Control C. Okay, there we go. Maybe it's fixed. All right, good. I don't know what happened there, but it's fixed. It's all good. All right. So npm start. Okay, server is running on port 3000. So let's try again. Hey, check it out. All right, so port 3000, localhost 3000 is now rendering our homepage with the styling in place, which is good. Um, and if you didn't get this, if this isn't working for you, make sure that you have all of the dependencies listed here, installed. Make sure if whatever dependencies are listed at the top of your file, they may be different than mine. Whatever's listed up there, make sure you have it installed. So Jelly Bean, make sure that you have all of these dependencies installed, because if it says module not found, it means you need to install something else. So if you scroll to the top of whatever error you're getting, Jelly Bean, if you scroll to the top of that error, it should tell you which one is missing, whether it may be path, mongoose, whatever. You just need to do an npm install on that. Cores, yeah. So install cores. So just do npm I cores, and that should take care of it. Yeah. Good troubleshooting. You found it in the air. Okay. So we've got everything here. We've got that. Let me go back to my little path here. So I guess let's try to submit a form and see what we get. Oh, Jellybean says, okay, this is a good question. Jellybean says, npm init doesn't do everything you need? Question mark? Not sure. Yeah, so that's a good question. Especially for those of you who may be used to running code that you find already, like getting code from GitHub and just setting it up, right? But when you're running your own stuff, when you're building your own stuff, all npm init does is create your package.json and package lock.json files, right? So what you need to do then to populate your package.json and package lock files is actually install the packages. So if you're building your own stuff, you will need to install your own packages. So you will need to still, after you do your npm init and you go through the menu thing, you'll need to do npm install or npm I, and then just the entire list of packages here. So express, path, cores, .env, mongoose. And I would suggest nodemon as well. And then once you've done that, so watch your package.json file. You should see these dependencies get populated only after you do the npm install. And then once you've installed nodemon, you can modify your start script to run nodemon. So the command to install all of them on one line is just npm I think if I scroll up, it should be here. You can see it. So see what I did here in my terminal? You can just do all of them at once. You don't have to do them individually, just all of them at once. npm I, express, cores, .env, mongoose, nodemon, and then you'll want to add path in there as well. Yeah. Shouldn't nodemon be in your dev script? Technically, I didn't bother with it this time. Yes, it technically should. You can move it up to the dev script if you want. I'm never planning on deploying this to production, so I just moved nodemon to my start script. Because it's slightly faster. Typing npm start is slightly faster than typing npm run dev, but it is up to you how you structure that. I'll admit that's a bit of a shortcut. Yeah, but I mean, hey, that's a decent catch. Yep. All right, so let's see if we can submit a form. Let's just see what happens. So theoretically, I have a schema that's set up. I have a post request set up to process these form submissions as they come in. Minimize this. All right. I have a server request path set up. So theoretically, as soon as I hit the submit button on the form, it'll send a route of service request up to my server. It's listening for that route. It will then try to see if it can build an object based on the schema. And then it will see if it can save it. And then once it's done, it should just send us a message saying form submitted successfully. And then if there's an error, we should get the error back. Okay, so let's see what happens. 555. Email is going to be, and then we'll check the database to see if this gets written. And choose a date of, let's say tomorrow, a time of, we'll do 9:15 a.m. And then what was the what's that thing that somebody said earlier about their dog must be groomed to smooth jazz? Because I want to put that in there. I need to find that message. Hang on. Something about smooth jazz. If anybody remembers what it was, please spam it in there. User create index. So that error is one that I actually got yesterday. If you look somewhere in, I think your Mongoose Connect function up here, there may be an option in there called use create index or user create index. Just remove that. You don't need it. Just chuck it out. Groom to smooth jazz. Yeah. Fluffy. Okay. Yeah, there we go. Fluffy. Fluffy can only be groomed to smooth jazz. Yes. There you go, star droids. All right, let's see what happens. Okay, so we get our message back saying form submitted successfully. Now we'll see whether that's true or not. Because right now, in the way this is currently set up, we really don't have a lot of like validation, right? Or confirmation. So, and I don't really like this message. I would prefer that this redirect me back to the homepage. So we'll do that. We'll make that update. And I also probably want it to put something in the terminal for me when something gets written to the database. I just want it to drop that in the terminal and say, yes, it worked. You did it. So let's check the database. So I'm going to make this big for a second because MongoDB sucks on small windows. I'm going to refresh. And what did I call this? ChatGPT site demo. So my database is there. So it connected to MongoDB and it created my database. And it created my collection here called forms. Okay, this is what I expected. I expected this. It's okay. It's something we'll fix. But you'll notice it didn't write anything. So suspense, think about why that might have happened. Look at the server.js code. See if you can figure it out. We're going to take a break. But I'm curious to see if anybody groks it. But it's something in the something is missing in the server.js code, and I'm curious to see if anybody catches it because this is a common problem that I've seen when people come to me and they ask for help on their app. They're like, my form isn't working. I have everything set up. My form isn't able to submit. I don't understand why. I'm not getting data written to my database. Like, what is going on? So I'm going to leave this ambiguous until after the break, and we'll see if anybody groks it over that time. Okay, so 5 minutes, we're going to take a break. When I come back, we're going to fix this issue. And if you figure it out over the break, feel free to pipe up and chat. Common problem. All right, reset that. So see you back here in 5. And if you are able to, please get up and stretch, get something to drink, use the restroom, whatever you got to do, and think about why nothing might be. We clearly established a database connection, right? So what would cause that data not to make it? Let's think about that. All right. When we come back, we'll figure it out. Okay, folks, we got about a minute left in the break, so come on back if you're coming back. Get yourself a glass of water, use the restroom, pet your dog, pet your cat, pet your significant other with their permission, and then come on back. If you did not get up yet and you are able to, please do get up and stretch out a little bit. I see you sitting down this whole time. It's not good for you. Hey, that's okay, Arwen. We are having fun with Chat GPT. All right, folks, I'm going to go ahead and pause the timer here and let's go back to our code and see if we can figure out. So, when we left off, let me turn the camera back on. There we go. Hello again. Um, hey, Thirsty. All right. So, Jelly Bean, you have your get slash error. That's awesome. That means your server is running. You will need to make sure that you have path installed and that you have asked ChatGPT to use index.html as the homepage. So if you've done those two things, that's great. You will also need to make sure that you have moved your index.html and your style.css into a public folder. So your folder structure should look like this. So you have a public folder which contains index.html and style.css because that is where your server is looking for those files to be. Now, before the break, we got our submission working, right? Our post request worked. It wrote to the database, but what it wrote to the database was an empty object. So let's troubleshoot this a little bit. And Jellybean, make sure that you told ChatGPT to render index.html as the homepage. So you should have a function in there that looks something like this. You should have an app.get, something like that. Make sure that it has added that to your code. But yeah, so before the break, we saw that it was doing a post request and it was writing an empty object to the database. So that's good progress, but let's see if we can figure out why that might be. Um, I wonder. All right. So one way we could investigate this is by adding a console log in an appropriate place. So how about we add a console log inside of the post request to console log what it is getting. So what it's doing is it's setting up the form object based on the request body. So how about we console log the request body and see what actually happens? Is the form data making it into our post, like into our little try catch block here? Is the form data getting that far? So let's tell ChatGPT to do that. It would be easy to add it in here, but I want ChatGPT to do it instead because I'm too lazy to write code. All right. Add a console log. Add a console log. Let's see. Of the request body prior to saving the data to the database. Let's do that. Oop. Okay, so we got a little error there. That's fine. Generally, when you get that error, you can just refresh your window and it'll come right back. All right. Go back. We'll try again. A log of the request body prior to, actually, no, I'm going to say, all right, add a console log of the, add a console log of the form variable. I'm just going to say that. I'm not going to tell it where to put it. I'm just going to say add a console log of the form variable. So it needs to understand where that variable is and where it should put the console log. So let's see if it knows. We'll see. Might be getting bogged down. Oh, there we go. It's going. It's cooking. We're cooking. Hey, thank you for the follow, Mouse Bites. And Carmen. It should have Control C, Control V. Yeah. But hey, even retyping a few of my requests is easier than typing all of this, right? Now let's see if it puts it in the right place. Yeah, see, look, it added a console log exactly where we would have expected. Right after it created the form variable, we're going to have it console log this and see what it took in from the request body. All right, I'm going to go ahead and just drop that in the same place as it is there and save it. Now we'll try again. Go back to localhost 3000. Inadequate Dev, thank you so much for the sub. I appreciate it. Wow. 2 subs so far. Thank you so much. I really appreciate everyone's support. This is a lot of fun for me, so I hope you all are having fun as well. All right, we'll do 10:12 a.m. for this one. Smooth jazz, please. All right. Okay, form submitted successfully. Now, it console logged the object that it built. So once again, we have an empty object here. So something is missing, right? Our form data, what this is saying is that our form data is not making it into our post request in order for it to build the object. So something is wrong. Has anybody figured out what that might be yet? I know I'm kind of harping on this, but this is something that folks have come to me multiple times and I had to learn as far as something that might be missing. We're missing it. I'll make it a little easier. We're missing an app.use in our server. What do you think we might be missing? Something is missing in our app.use. Something that ChatGPT did not add, which is necessary for us to be able to parse the form data. That might help. Yeah, ask GTP. Yeah, we could. We could ask the question. Arwen is technically correct. Let's see. We can ask GPT. Why don't we do that? All right. How can I parse form data in a server? Yeah, so GPT is telling us the same thing that Arwen said, right? Body parser. Now it's going to regenerate everything, but yeah. So, however, body parser. So this information is a little bit out of date, right? We don't use body parser anymore. Body parser is now integrated as a part of Express. Yeah, so it's requiring body parser here. You could do that. However, body parser is technically deprecated. We can replace it with the built-in version from Express. So let me get that statement real quick. So it is parsing JSON, correct? But the form data needs to be parsed via the URL encoded middleware. So what you can do is you can just tell ChatGPT to add express.url encoded middleware to my server, and that should understand what we want. And then what that will do is it will allow our server to actually parse the data that was submitted in the form. Um, yeah, so now we have express.json, but then also express.url encoded, and it's set to false extended, but either way, it'll work. So the message that I told it to do was this. So you'll want to add that to your server as well. Now, let's try this again. Yeah, and it's saying, it even tells us why we need that, right? It says this form will enable the server to parse URL encoded data, which is the format that the form data will be sent in when it is submitted. The form data will be available as a JavaScript object in the rec.body property. So it even tells us why we need that. Now, it didn't, but the thing is, it didn't include that in the first place, right? We had to know what the problem was and then solve that problem. So now that we've requested it, it can tell us why we need it. But again, it wasn't smart enough to know that we needed it in the first place. So that's why. Now I'm going to go ahead and grab this and drop it in. Now, Jelly Bean, did you get your homepage working yet? You'll want to make sure that you are saving as you go. That every time you have an update, that you save your code. That could be why it's not working either. Okay, we're back to localhost. Let's try again. You're getting your MongoDB set up. Okay. Oops. Wolf.com. Where's everybody else at? Is everybody else at the point where they're able to see a blank record written to their database? If you're following along. If not, that's fine. Fluffy requires smooth jazz. All right, let's see what happens. I did save. Yes, I saved. Okay. All right, so form submitted successfully. Hey, Syntactic Brown Sugar, welcome. Well, it's so we are already doing that. So that's, I like that you brought that up, Edward. We'll look at this in a second. I'll explain why we didn't just ask that question. All right, let's refresh. Aha, check it. Look at that. Now, after just adding that one line, that URL parser, now it's actually able to read the form data. So Edward asked, why didn't we just tell ChatGPT, after the form is submitted, send the form data to the database or something? Well, that's because we were already doing that right here. It was already doing that. We could tell it was writing objects to the database. They were just empty. So the problem was not that it wasn't sending things to the database. The problem was it was sending things to the database that were empty because the form data wasn't being read in the first place, right? It was working as designed, perfectly fine, but the objects it was saving were empty. Now that it can actually parse that form data using this URL express URL encoded, now it can actually parse the form data and pull it out, apply it to our schema, create a new form object, and then save it to the database with everything in it. So does that make sense? I know a lot of folks don't know what this does. Like, they put you put this line in your apps and you're like, yeah, it needs to be there, but I don't know what it does. Well, that was an example of what that URL encoded line actually does for you. So remember that when you're building your own stuff. You need that. Jellybean says, should I use the VS Code extension or the terminal for MongoDB? Jellybean, I'm not quite sure what you're asking there. You should be using MongoDB Atlas if you want this to work the same way that mine does. I would say Atlas is probably the easier thing to use. So if you don't already have a MongoDB Atlas account, I would set that up. You can see I'm using Atlas here. It's the cloud version of MongoDB. you can local host MongoDB on your machine, but yeah. So Jelly Bean, you don't need any terminal extensions or anything like that. Um, as long as you are, as long as your code looks similar to mine, you should be able to connect to MongoDB Atlas, which is what we're doing here. Create a schema, and then save that form data to MongoDB using Mongoose. Yeah. So, Jelly Bean, I'm not quite sure. I'm still not quite sure what you're asking. We are connecting to MongoDB using an environment variable. So you can connect to MongoDB by grabbing your connection string from MongoDB Atlas, um, grabbing that from your cluster, and putting in your password. And then you're pulling that URL in and you're connecting to it within your server itself. Oh, you're on choose a connection method. Yeah. So you want to connect your application, which should give you a connection string that looks something like mine. I'm not going to stay on that screen for too long, but it's supposed to be private, but just wanted to show you. So yeah, you'll connect your application. And if you, so Jelly Bean, it sounds like maybe you haven't done this very often before, which is fine. I have plenty of, so I think in my previous video here on Twitch, or 2 videos ago, I have a, where we build a full stack template manually from scratch a couple streams ago. So you're welcome to follow along with that as well. It'll give you more in-depth, like, okay, here's how we find connection strings. Here's how we get our password. Here's how we set up our database name, that kind of thing. So maybe a suggestion for additional viewing would be those streams as well to kind of get you back up to speed. Yeah, no worries. Okay. So we have successfully submitted our item, which is great. And we can see that it, wrote the correct object to the console now. So now we can submit forms. However, I don't really like what it's doing here. After I submit a form, I'm stuck, right? It just says form submitted successfully. And what I would prefer is if it redirected me back to the home page instead, right? After I submit a form on a website, I would expect that I'm taken, either to another page or back to the home page with an empty form so I could submit again if I wanted to. So I'm going to change this. I don't like this. I want it to change. So what I can say instead is I'm going to say, what does it say right now? It says res.send form submitted successfully. So instead of that, I'm going to say instead of sending a message saying that the form was submitted successfully, please redirect back to the homepage. So I'm just going to tell it what I want instead. So replace the message with a redirect. Let's see if it can handle that. While that whole thing is rendering, does anybody else have any questions on what we're doing, how we're doing it, what we're asking for, that type of thing? And here is what I just asked. So I'm going to put that in chat if you're following along. I'm going to scroll back up and grab that. It's slightly different from my script. So that was the last thing I asked it to do. All right, so now look at the difference. After the save, it's now redirecting back to the home page, right? So that is now changed. And so I'm just going to grab that line and drop it in. So save. Okay. Await form save, res redirect, back to homepage. So now let's try another form submission. Whoops, wrong one, sorry. And we'll say pick a date, pick a time, and let's see, may require, um, here, you will be uh, bitten. Say that. All right, so it's created the object. Ta-da! Yay, it's working. Good job. Hey, Beer Chug, welcome. All right, so let's refresh MongoDB here. It wrote that new object to the database, and it also redirected me back to the home page. Yeah! So it did what I asked, right? Redirect me back to the home page. Okay, baller. Great. Now, next thing to do is going to be, well, actually, one thing I noticed here when I was just looking at this form is that one thing I asked it for is actually missing. So I asked it to also have a basically a selector box, like an option box to where you could select a service. So I need to add that. That needs to be added to the code, just to the HTML. Note it's been X days since the cat has smacked him. I saw that meme too. That was pretty funny. All right, so let's have it modify our HTML. Add, let's see, add a selector to the home page. I'm going to give it a little help here. I'm going to say add a selector to the form on the home page where the customer can choose choose the service, can choose from the services, from the available services. Yeah, we'll try that. Tame Mister, thank you again for the sub. My goodness. Thank you so much. Long time sub, Tame Mister. I always really appreciate your support. Thank you so much, guys. You're amazing. Wolfpack. All right, let's see if this works. Now, what I'm curious is what it's going to do. Is it just going to add it to the HTML? Or is it also going to be smart enough to recognize that the server needs to be updated to accommodate this additional form data? So I don't know what's going to happen here because this is not something that happened on my previous versions of this application. So we are in the weeds here. We are, the boat is out from shore. I have no idea what's going to happen. So let's see what it does. This is a little bit of that chaos that I was talking about. You never know what's going to happen. All right, so it's giving me the updated form, hopefully with a nice selector. Let's see. We got the name, we got the phone, we got the email. We got the date, we got the time. Here we go. Yeah, check that out. Look at what it did. Okay, so it's adding additional services that we actually don't have listed up above. So there, right here, this was it did what we wanted. So it did what we wanted, right? It added the selector, but it didn't catch the context that we don't have all of those services listed up top, right? It's slightly different. This is fine. We can add it to our index.html here. So I'm just going to grab this whole form section and replace it. So the form it generated here is slightly different than the form that we currently have in the code. So I'm just going to go with it and I'm going to replace the whole thing and we're going to see what happens. All right, now our server is not set up to handle this at the moment. It's not set up to read this additional field that we just added. Ooh, fancy text area. Yeah. Yep. God, I love text areas. They're the workhorse of any online form. Text areas they have a bit of my heart. I just love HTML forms in general. They're so powerful for what they actually are. All right, we'll save that. Now, I don't know what's going to happen here. I'm also going to say, all right, update the server. I'm just going to be ambiguous. I'm just going to say update the server to include the new, or to, I'm just going to say to handle. Update the server to handle the new field. Let's see what it does. What will it do? Will it know that it needs to update the schema? Or and you know and it will need to know, first off, will it know that it needs to update the schema and then look in the request body for the appropriate field and apply it to that schema? So it's going to have to do a couple things here. If we go over to our server.js, it's going to need to do a couple things, right? It's going to need to add it to the schema, and it's going to need to, well, I guess it's just doing an apply here. So it's just taking the whole body and applying it. So really it's just going to need to be able to know to add it to the schema. So let's see what happens. What is it going to do? And I didn't tell it what field I wanted it to handle, right? I didn't say add the field. I just said, all right, update the server, and it has to know what the new field is and where to add it. Two things, which are very hard to understand. This is all very nebulous context, which is the funnest part for me. I don't know. I love this, the fact that it can understand, quote unquote, these types of things. The power of HTML, indeed. Yeah, inadequate. I love forms. They're so cool. Ah, good catch. Yeah, so things have changed slightly, right? Good catch. It ignored Mongoose, didn't it? Yeah, it did. So that's another important thing to note. I'm actually glad it did that, because ChatGPT, since I didn't explicitly specify that, I didn't, in mine, I didn't explicitly specify that I wanted it to use Mongoose. So it just said, all right, I'm gonna use MongoDB instead. So it changed it up a little bit. We're not gonna do that. I'm gonna have it use Mongoose because I don't want it to use MongoDB. Um, use Mongoose. Um, let's see, what did I supposed to say? I'm going to say I'm going to say basically what I did before. So what I had you all say before, which was just update the server to use Mongoose to save the form data to MongoDB. The save function should be asynchronous and should use try catch blocks to handle errors. So I'm going to drop that in. Now, once I explicitly tell it to do that, it should remember that request and not try to revert back to MongoDB again. Now it should be, oh yeah, they requested that before. I'm not gonna ignore it. But we'll see. You never know. Life is like a box of chocolates, right? You never know what you're gonna get. AI is like a box of chocolates, like a box of scary, unknowable chocolates that nobody knows exactly what the ingredients are. Could be poison, could be truffles. You just don't know. Ah, there we go. Now it got it. It got it. Good job, ChatGPT. You scary box of chocolates, you. All right, it's telling me what it did. It added the MongoDB connection, it added the schema, it added the model. Yeah. And it added the try catch blocks and the asynchronous function as suggested. My last ChatGPT request after redirecting back to the homepage was, um, let me scroll back up a little bit here. So the last thing I did, so after the redirect, I noticed that it was missing a selector on the homepage. So I said this. I said basically just add the selector with a list of services. Um, and then after that, I told it to please update the server. So we updated the homepage to have a new field, but the server needs to be set up to read that field in the form. So after that, I said update the server to handle a new field. And then after that, I had to specify for it to continue using Mongoose. You may not have that problem, but here was the next thing that I said. So yours probably, if you told it to use Mongoose before, it probably won't switch back to MongoDB. But just in case, that's the next thing I said. And then after that, we should be back up and running now. Yeah, okay, so I've got port 3000. So it looks slightly different, but I think it'll still work. Let's test it out, shall we? Oh, and another thing you can do too, which I might just have it do right now, is add comments describing um, what each part of the server does. Let's try that. See if it can do it. Hey, there we go. So it can even describe what it's doing. So if you don't know what it's doing, just ask it to tell you. So the last thing I just requested there while that's running is just say, add some comments, please. So those are better comments than I think I would write, honestly. If y'all are regular viewers of my stream, you know how crappy I am at commenting things. So if ChatGPT is willing to do it for me, then I'm happy. There we go. I think that looks good. Thank you, ChatGPT. Okay, now let's drop this in again and see if it works. Okay, server is running again. You know what you could do? So here's a suggestion. If you want comments on your code, try dropping your code into ChatGPT, like the whole server. Try dropping that in there and saying, "Please comment my code," and see what it does. Just drop the whole JavaScript in there and ask it to comment it for you. Um, Nice. Xmetrics had a great suggestion there. They said, life pro tip, tell ChatGPT to number responses so that you can refer to them by line number or reference number. Also, expand on that is the best. Okay. Those are both great tips. So, add numbers to I'm assuming like each time it answers, you can have it add a number to that answer. And then adding line numbers to the responses as well. Yeah. All right, let's try it. ChatGPT is a valuable member of the team. All right. I've lost track of what number I'm on, so we're on Wolf 8 now. I just want them to be distinct from each other. All right. 4 a.m. seems like a good time for a grooming, right? I'm an early riser. Oh, I didn't reload this. Dang it. There we go. Now the service is there. Whoops. I should have reloaded the page. And you can have ChatGPT style this for you if you would like. You could ask it to add some CSS, which we might do toward the end here, to style that box in the same way that the others were styled. Okay, and we'll select a service. Let's do a full groom at 4 in the morning. Dang, I would reschedule. I would reschedule if I was. Yeah, okay, all right. We'll make it 4:20. Yeah, I feel that. Okay. Okay, now check it out. So we can see the object that was created in the terminal over here. And so it did incorporate the service full groom correctly into the server. Charges 69 feet for that early. Absolutely. Ah. Yeah, and we can add some validation to this as well. So I think I did that in previous versions of this. So we can also, that's a very, that's actually a good suggestion. I should do that. A nice thing, again, a wonderful thing about HTML forms is that you can do a lot of validation within the form itself. You don't have to do it on the server side. And I would suggest that you add validation in your forms um, as much as you can to stop errors before they start, right? So we can add in the time picker, set a minimum value of, let's say, 8 a.m. and a max value of 5 p.m. So you can do that using an input box of type time. You can set min and max values so people can't select outside that range. But also, yes, absolutely. More validation is good. Do it in the forms, do it on the server side, do it in your schema. Um, and yeah, do it in all the places that you possibly can, but absolutely do it in the forms. There we go. So it's given me updated text for the time picker. So I can just grab that and I'm going to drop it into my time picker, which is somewhere. Here we go. Just replace that. Um, so the last two things that I requested was add comments and then set a min value of 8 a.m. and a max value of 5 p.m. And it generated that for me. Now let's see if that worked. So I'm going to reload this. And now in my time picker, let's see, the other times, the additional times are still listed. Let's see if I can pick something sooner. Did I save? I did. Aren't you working? Interesting. Minimum 8 a.m., max 1700. I wonder if it won't work when I try to submit. Oh, yeah, these are all required fields. Okay, I'll just put some junk in here. Again, this has some validation here. So if I try to submit, it'll say I don't have an @ in my email address. So that's nice. Pick a date. Time is after closing hours. So hopefully that won't work. Yeah, okay. That's the validation there. So when I clicked submit, it told me that that time is not valid. So that'll do. Yeah. So unfortunately, it still shows it in the picker itself, but once I go to submit, it'll tell me that's not a valid time. You could add text here that tells the user what times are valid. So, in the description, you could have a little, in the label, you could have a little description saying, valid times are between 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. I think that's good enough for now. Yeah, and you could add a hover, exactly. Yeah, you could add an info icon with hover. There's a lot of different ways you could do that, right? So I think we have all the fields that we want now. I'm going to have ChatGPT add a little bit of CSS. Style what is this called? I'm going to have it style that service selector. Style the service selector. I'm just going to say style the service selector the same way as the other inputs. I'll see if it can understand that. Style the service selector the same way as the other inputs. There we go. It knows how the other input boxes were styled, And so it's giving me that. So they should match. Yeah, Xmetric says it can understand the most loosely linked things, and that's kind of what I'm demonstrating here. Um, oh, and it's giving me the selector box again, which I didn't really need, but I should be able to just grab this and drop it into my style.css. I'll put it with the other stuff. I'll drop it into right here. Okay, save that. What's interesting is now here, when it gave me the selector again, it understood the context again. So this time it gave me the correct list of services, which is rather interesting. So previously, when it generated it for me, the list of services was wrong. It didn't match what was already on the page. But now, the second time it did it, it gave it to me correctly. So that's kind of interesting. We had a miss and then a hit. So I'm going to go ahead and fix that. Let's see, div label. I'm just going to replace name service. I'm just going to replace the list of options. So that'll match what's higher up on the page. All right, now let's see how that looks. Haha, nice. The service selector box has now been styled the same way as the others. Oh, and I have one extra on there still. Let me get the full groom option off of there. Okay. Now we have bath and brush, full groom, nail trimming. Yeah. So now we have in our options, we have grooming, bathing, nail trimming. I think that's close enough. It's not perfect, but it works. Okay. It's getting smarter. Yeah. It's building more context. It is. As it goes. So the cool thing about these chats and why you want to have separate chats when so each time you start a new topic with ChatGPT, you're going to want to start a new chat. And you can have, 10 or 15 chats open, but just try to keep them sort of separated by topic. So that way ChatGPT can build context in a particular chat and learn as it goes where and work alongside you to accomplish your goal. Yeah. Xmetric says, personally, I do a pop up modal with a video featuring dancing kittens holding the valid hours on a postcard. I would love to see that. Yeah, Jelly Bean. So, as far as get service request, I think you'll want to make sure that in your server you have a post. It's doing a post request for service request because right now it's trying to do a get for some reason. So you want to check your server and make sure that that's app.post to that service request path. Okay, so the last request that I just did, if you're following along, was just to style the service selector the same way as the other inputs. So that's what we did. We've got all the fields in place now. Now I want to add a fairly big addition to this. So let's say I'm the groomer, right? I have my site here. People are able to request services from me, which is great. They're able to put in all their information, which is great. But and that information is being stored in my database. But if I'm just, I'm having a busy day and I'm the groomer, I don't want to have to log into my database to see everything that's been submitted. I don't want to have to go all the way over to MongoDB and look at it in this weird format. What I really want is a separate page that I can visit that shows me all of the requests that have been submitted so far, preferably put in like a date time order, right? I would want to sort it by date and time, and just show everything so that I can call these people in the order of their request times and either say yes or no. I can accept or I can't accept your request. So I think what we're going to do next is we are going to add another page and link to that page, obviously. And that what that page is going to do is it's going to take all the requests so far from the database, sort them by date, list them all in a readable format. Um, and so that way, if I click on that page, I can see everything that's been submitted. Now, when we talk about doing something like that, what am I going to need in order to, obviously I have my server, I can do a query on the database and pull everything down, but what do I need in order to actually display that in the browser? When I want to take something from a database and display it in the browser, what do I need? What additional thing do I need that we don't already have here? I need motivation, true, but what is unique when I want to actually like take something from the database that, I mean, I could have 0 requests or I could have 100. What do I need in order to show them, to show a dynamic amount of information that could change every single time the page loads? A template, yeah. Or EJS, exactly. We can use EJS or React, absolutely. We're going to keep it a little simpler because I only have about an hour left in my scheduled stream time here. But we're going to keep it simple and we're going to use um, EJS today. Just that's what a lot of us, what a lot of the viewers on this particular stream are familiar with. We'll go ahead and use EJS. And EJS is, what do we call EJS in general? If we're setting it up, you know, yeah, I mean, you can use a lot of you could do action strips, solid.js, svelte, vanilla, absolutely. Yeah, we're gonna use we're gonna use an HTML template. Yeah, or in our server, we're gonna call that a view engine. Um, yeah, we're gonna use it. It's a view way to view information from our database. Exactly. Yep. Okay. So let's see if we can set up an EJS page that's going to display all the information from the database. We're going to need to do a little bit of additional configuring in our server. And how can we do that? Well, I think first what I want to do is I want to set up the server side components that we will need in order to send that information to, come on, my windows are not linked together anymore. Come on. All right, there we go. I want to set up the server side architecture that we will need in order to successfully send, like query the database, get all the information, and then send it to an EJS page. Oh no, yeah, no, Jellybean, you're doing fine. It sounds like you're getting a little bit farther each time, which is great. So yeah, you're getting there. Submitted, but I got a JSON object return. So did it save to the database? That's great. All right, so what do we need to do here? Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say create a function to send all data from the, what do we call this what do we call the collection? The collection is called what? Sorry, I need to look in MongoDB. I don't remember what the collection is called. Forms. Okay, that's fine. Probably could have called it something better, but forms is fine. All right, from the forms collection, I want to sort it by date and time. Did by date and time to an EJS page, which we haven't created yet, called admin.ejs, and add EJS as the view engine. All right, so what am I doing here? I'm telling ChatGPT to modify the server to create a new function that's going to query our collection, pull everything down, sort it by date and time, and then package that data up and render a page called admin.ejs and send all the data to it. And then also set up EJS as the view engine for our server. So that's doing a lot of things there. So I'm going to go ahead and paste this. Let's make sure it works first, and then I'll paste it in chat so y'all can do the same thing. But yeah, we did a bunch of things there, right? We're accomplishing a bunch of goals at the same time in 2 sentences. So first it's reminding us that we need to install EJS, which is an excellent reminder. And it's saying that we just need to go ahead and set up the view engine to be EJS. And it's telling us, oh my gosh, it's also it's even creating the EJS page for us. I didn't ask it to do that, right? I didn't say create admin.ejs, but it knows we don't have one. So it's creating it for us anyway. I didn't ask it to do that. It says, oh, you want to render this page? You don't have it yet? Oh, honey, let me just build that for you, which is friggin' nuts. And it even decided that the best way to display that the best way to display that information would be in a table. Bill and Go, thank you so much for the follow. I think what ChatGPT just did, yeah, absolutely. Clap, clap, clap. ChatGPT, it knows too much, indeed. So yeah, it gives us the steps. It says, all right, you need to install EJS. So let's go ahead and do that here. And I'm gonna also, this is what I asked it to do. I'll paste it in chat. I mean, holy crap. And I'll be real, I did not expect it to actually build the EJS page. When I did this yesterday, I had to ask it for the page to be built for me. But this is much better. So, I mean, that what I pasted there in chat. That is verbatim what I asked it to do yesterday, and it only created the function for me. It didn't build the page. So it's just all about that interpretation, right? It interpreted it differently. It interpreted it differently yesterday than it did today, which I think is interesting. So Jelly Bean, you're going to need to make sure that when you're submitting if you're testing this, you need to fill out each part of the form because those are required fields. So that's why you're getting an error. I think anyway. Yeah. So you just need to fill out all the fields and try again. All right. So npm install EJS. Well, let's follow the steps that it gave us here. So I'm going to kill my server for a second, and I'm going to install npm install EJS. Beep boop. All right. I'm going to set the view engine to EJS. I'll add that up here. I'm going to add it just after my middleware here. Add a comment. Be consistent. All right. And I'm going to set up my app.get. I'll put it after the app. It's interesting that middleware got added down at the bottom. I guess it's fine. We'll see. We'll see if that order of things is bad or not. But oh, no worries, Jelly Bean. Interesting. Yeah, I don't know. Well, I can save this to GitHub at the end, Jelly Bean, like the completed code, and you can go through and look and see maybe what might be different between yours and mine, and see if you can get it working from that. We'll ask ChatGPT how to send it. Like Rascal said earlier, we'll ask ChatGPT at the end how to save this code to GitHub and then follow the instructions. All right. So I've got the app.get saved in here. And then I'm also going to go ahead and, since it gave me the template, I'm going to go ahead and create this admin.ejs page as well. Now, yeah, chat may have provided slightly different code. Absolutely. I'm sure it did, actually. So let's go ahead and create this admin.ejs template as well. Now, in order to do that, like we mentioned earlier, I'm going to need to create a views folder in which to put this page. So since we set EJS as the view engine somewhere here, since we set EJS as the view engine, I need to create a views folder. Now, I'm going to check something here real quick. Oops. Bear with me for 1 second. Image.js. Well, we'll see. I feel like there should be something else there to specify the views folder, but maybe not. Maybe not. Let's try it. All right, I'm creating a views folder, and then inside of that folder, I'm creating admin.ejs, and I'm just going to drop in here what it says. Save that. And so what it's doing here is it is taking the form data, it's dropping it into a table, and then in the body of the table, it's looping through each item in the form, right? Form data for each, and it's just writing it as a cell in the table. So we should have a table with multiple rows, a header, so a header up top, and then multiple rows for each entry in the table. So theoretically, we'll see if that works. I do want to be able to actually get to this page, right? So I'm going to say add a link to the admin page. Add a link to the admin page. Link. I'm going to say, let's see, link to the. And I'm going to say update the nav bar on the home page. Nav bar on the home page to link to the admin page. All right, so now that should allow me to get to the admin page in the first place. So that's generating a new version of the nav bar. So I'll copy that, and I'm going to put that in my home page on the nav bar section. So I'm actually just going to add that as an option on the nav bar because I kind of like what's already there. So I'm just going to be like, boop, add one more thing, save it. Now let's see if that page will display. Oop, I need to start my server again. Sorry. npm start. And Detless Nut, thank you for the follow. We are having a lot of fun today. I'm digging this. I hope you are too. I hope you all are having just as much fun as I am because I'm having a blast. All right, let's see if this page will display. Oop, we got a crash. Okay, that's fine. Sebastian not found. Thank you for the follow. All right, so form is not defined. So the error says form is not defined. That's okay. And that appears to be on our server. Oh, okay. So the reason that didn't work is because that doesn't match the name of our the name of our actual schema. So our schema is named service request, and so that needs to match. So when it's querying it, it couldn't find it. So I just need to change this to say service request. So it lost the context there, right? It lost the context, couldn't find it. All right, now let me see. That'll be sent. That's going to render admin. Now, did everybody see what I changed there? I went down to my my app.get that's rendering the admin page, and I changed the collection that's querying on. It should be querying on, I changed the model that it's querying on. It needs to query on service request, and there we go. Now it worked. Nice. Okay, so now our form data populated. Excellent. Now that table looks kind of janky. I think I'd like to style the table to have like borders and stuff. Um, but it did render, so that's good. Now it was able to actually query the database, find all the data, and send it back to the table. So let's make sure that link works. Yeah, it does. Awesome. Okay, so let's try. Oh, and I think you know what it did at some point. I think it changed. I think it changed the name of our schema. I'm curious. Let me refresh this. Yeah, it did. Oh, so that's something else to watch out for. So our database is still called, ChatGPT site demo, but at some point when it regenerated the server, it decided to change the name of the collection. So we used to be saving to forms, now we're saving to service requests. Whoops. Uh, that's okay, but that's the kind of thing you need to watch out for. So now I have two collections in here, which is why it got confused between the two. Happy accident. Yeah. Okay, that's fine. Um, we've got all of our stuff saved in here. Now I'd like to um, the table on the admin page should have uh, banded rows and borders around each cell. Also, add a button that links back to the home page. Below the header. Yeah, let's do that. So I want the table to be styled with banded rows, so they're easy to tell apart, and I want each cell to have like borders around it, so like a black box. So we'll add that as well. Oop. Oh, and so it said there was an error getting the response. That's fine. If you get that, if that happens, you can just usually reload the page and it'll sort itself out. Let's try again. Oh, okay. Or just regenerate the response. It's okay, buddy. You can do it. You've been doing so good. Come on, buddy. And this time it actually generated the table a different way than it did the first time. Wait till it responds to you cheering it on. Yeah. Sometimes I just go ahead and tell it it's doing a good job, just to give it a little encouragement. ChatGPT is now following. Wait, what? All right, so let's see what this did here. I feel like there's a better way to do that without using, maybe not necessarily banded rows and columns, but I feel like there's a better way to do that without using CSS. Because I think in a previous version of this, it was able to do it, but that's all right. We can try that. Also, interestingly enough, here it added include header and include footer. Anybody know what that does? I haven't used that before. I think it maybe thinks that there's parts, like a header and a footer. It also didn't. Oh, no, it gave me my button. It's down there at the bottom. Partials. Yeah, that's right. Partials. Yeah. I forgot what the word was. Partials. So it did give me my button. That's good. And Yeah, I kind of want to see how it did it in my previous version of this. So bear with me. I'm going to go to another version. I want to see what it did. Let's looky here. Oh yeah, it's just I think it just needs to add. I think I just need to add rows if I just want the borders. Um, table wait no table row tr td. Oh, that looks the same. Interesting. Okay. Well, let's try something else here. I'm not gonna add that to my EJS yet because I like how my EJS looks currently. So I'm gonna go back home and I'm gonna add something an additional item here. All right. Add a valid time. Please. Um, please watch out. He has. Let's see what do I say. Yes, please. There we go. Okay, so that's submitted successfully. Now let's check the admin page. Okay, so that's still not styled the way I want. All right, let me look. Oh, Bombaloni, I'm glad you like it. Yeah, I can share the whole. So I can basically share my notes with you. The kind of the general script that I've been reading off of. That might be the easiest thing for me to share. Um, it won't match the combo that we followed here on stream exactly, um, but it does follow the general shape of what we built. Do not feed the cat cheeseburgers past midnight. Yeah. Let's see. Make sure I get the right one here. Okay, so back to our conversation. All right, well, we can try this. We'll see if what they gave us is going to work. So it put the home button on there. I didn't put the home button where I wanted it, but that's okay. So I'm going to replace the existing table. I'll have a home button at the bottom. Save that. Setting a class there. Okay, now I didn't add the styling yet, so I just want to see what this looks like. Okay. Service request is not defined. Yeah, so we're a little bit off kilter here. It got a little bit confused. So I'm just going to make it consistent. I'm going to go back over to my server here, and I'm going to send it an object called service requests instead of form data. That should be all I need in order to fix that issue. So all I'm doing is that's behind my head there. All right. So all I'm doing is just making everything consistent. So my schema is now called service request. My collection, my model is now called service request. I'm passing it an object called service requests. All right. Okay, we got a crash. That's all right. And I need to rename my variable to service requests as well. Save that. There. Okay. That fixed that. All right. Oh, yeah, no worries, Bombaloni. Yeah. Okay, so now I want to see if I can style this table. So if I add this to my style sheet, Let's see what it does. So I'm going to add it to my style sheet, a little bit of extra CSS here. Add that, save, and then also add a link to my style sheet on my page. See if that works. Hey, nice. Oh, that's slick. I dig it. Look at that. It's got banded rows. Oh, phone number didn't come through. Interesting. We'll see if we can fix that. But also, it's sorted by date and time. Got a lovely styling on there. Awesome. So I know I went a little fast there. I'll paste in the last couple things that I asked ChatGPT for. So I basically just said, um, and so Prenzo, I see your question. I will get to it in just a minute. Okay, so what I did is I updated the nav bar to link to the admin page. So that was the next thing I said. I said that the table should have banded rows and columns, and I wanted a button that goes back home. So it did that as well. And when it did that, it gave me some updated EJS as well as some updated styling. And so now we're looking pretty good. Only thing is, it did not populate the phone number. So we can solve that problem. I'm sure we can. But I do want to touch on Soranzo's question. Sorry. So Soranzo asked, "Hey, I'm very new to the software world, and I'm thinking about doing my own dev streams for a hobby project." That's awesome. Streaming is a great way to help others while also reinforcing your own knowledge. So I would say if anybody is inclined to stream, please do. It's a lot of fun, and it just helps you learn things and reinforce things. And chat, and I don't know, but chat is generally pretty smart. So when I don't know something, y'all know the answer. So it helps me. I feel like it benefits me more than it benefits you guys most of the time. Um, but so they say, but I'm worried about potentially leaking any of my sensitive info online by doing it. I was wondering if you could tell me what are some of the measures that you take to protect yourself, as well as anything I should be careful of or on the lookout for. Yeah, so I mean, you've seen, so for those of you who are regular viewers, you have seen that I do sometimes share my database, connection string to illustrate what you're supposed to do in order to set up a database connection. I do share that, but I also make sure that there is nothing in that cluster that is like sensitive in any way. I mean, and then I also, what I do is after my streams I change my password. So that's one thing I do. I just keep changing that password. So that's one thing that I do. I also make sure that my desktop is clean when I'm streaming. Like I don't have anything wild open behind my streaming windows. So if anybody, if I accidentally minimize a window, there's not going to be anything that's gonna, that's going to shock anybody or expose my personal information. So my desktop is clean. My browser tabs are clean. Um, just I don't know, just not having anything open that you wouldn't want, 75 viewers to see, right? Those are things. Those are some ways that you can, protect yourself as well. I would say those are the main things that I do. And I stream from the same location all the time. Same room. I don't, I don't take you guys for a tour of my house. Um, and yeah, I mean, just general. Don't share stuff that you don't want people to know, I guess. And I do. There's some other things that I do as well that I won't necessarily share publicly. Um, but yeah, I mean, and feel free to ask other streamers too, because they may have different things that they will tell you as well. But off the top of my head, those are the main things that I do to kind of keep safe. So Renzo says, so generally streaming VS Code is safe and doesn't leak any IPs or anything. I mean, a lot of streamers use VS Code. I it will show things like file paths, in your in like in the terminal and stuff. I mean, you can see file paths right now on my terminal. Um, so I kind of have like a slightly anonymized, user account that I use. So for file paths in the terminal, that kind of thing. Um, yeah, I mean, most folks who are streamers do use VS Code, so I would say it's pretty good. I mean, it's pretty safe. Yeah, that's a good question. Nobody's ever asked me that before. It was interesting. That's interesting to think about. What do I do? Okay, so we kind of missed our 5 o'clock break because I was getting excited. Um, would you all like to? So we'll probably wrap the stream up by 6 o'clock like usual. So my question for you all is: do y'all need a break? Would you like to take a 5 minute break now, or do we want to try to? Either way, we're gonna solve this issue as to why the phone number isn't displaying. Um, you want to do that now, or do you want to take a 5 minute break, come back, and then solve this issue? Which do y'all prefer? Oh, so Ranzo, sorry. What I meant by changing password is for MongoDB, you have a password for your database. And so since I do sometimes show that on screen for educational purposes to show like what are we working on, like how do you connect to MongoDB, right? I sometimes show the connection string. So in that case, I do change the password as soon as the stream is over. Um, although I really have never, had issues with folks. You all are my chat is generally very respectful and kind, and doesn't touch my stuff. So it's never been a problem. It's something that I do. Chris says I need to get out. All right, we'll take a short break. Uh, Soranzo, thank you for the follow. Oh, and another thing I do too, Soranzo, if you do start streaming, please take advantage of Twitch's auto moderation features that it has. So you can when you're streaming through Twitch, you can set up all sorts of protection features within Twitch itself, to keep your chat wholesome and nice and stop people from doing bad things in chat. So be sure to configure your auto moderation settings as well. You'll find that there's a lot of features there that you can utilize. That's awesome, Drunk Uncle Grandma. But yes, let's go ahead and take a break. Um, we'll do 3 minutes. Okay, we'll do a 3 minute break, and then when we come back, we'll figure out why the phone numbers aren't displaying, and then anything else after that. I mean, that's pretty much all I wanted to do with this. Once we get these phone numbers fixed, that's pretty much all I wanted to do. So after that, it's a free for all. We can do whatever the heck we want. Whatever we want to ask ChatGPT to do, we can do. Because that comes to the end of my scripted sort of things that I wanted to handle. All right, 3 minute timer, and then we'll come back, solve that issue. Oh, come on, Google. Google timer's gone again. 3 minute timer. Google. Okay, there we go. All right. See you back here in 3 minutes. Go get a drink of water, use the bathroom, whatever you got to do. See you back here shortly. Okay, folks, when you're ready, come on back. We have one more bug to squash in our little app here, and then we will have accomplished everything I wanted to accomplish, and then we can add additional stuff if we want. All right, I'm going to go ahead and stop the timer here. There's a question from Soranzo. Do you know anything about Udemy copyrights for Twitch streams? Unfortunately, I do not. However, feel free to ask other streamers; they might. That's not something I've really done on stream. Um, but yeah, I don't know. You could ask ChatGPT. All right, let's see if we can squash this last little bug here. So our phone numbers are not displaying. So let's check in our database and see if those phone numbers are present. I think they are, but let's confirm. So in the database, I can see that yes, phone number is there. So phone is present. So it's in the database. So that means it's just not getting written. Oh, I see the problem. Okay, so it's reading everything else correctly except for the phone number, and this the value that's saved in the database is just phone. So all I need to do is change that from phone number to phone, save it, and then when I reload, it should display just fine. There we go. Okay, so everything is present. Let's see if that home button works. Hey, awesome. So I can go to this admin page here. I can see all the grooming requests. And then I can go home. Uh, People can request services as is, submit them. They'll get added to the database. And then as the groomer, I can go ahead and see the entire list of requests, which is sorted by date and by time. So let me try something. Okay, let's add something on, let's see, I'm going to add something on the 4th, and I'm going to add it at an earlier time. So what I want to see is it going to sort correctly? So is it going to put things in the proper order? So if I add something on the 4th at like 8:36 a.m. or something like that, that should be the middle. That should become the middle row on this table. So let's see if that works. Go back home. Add here. We'll do. So I want to go on February 4th. I want to do it. We'll do 8:30 a.m. I'll do bath. Stuck in the middle with you. All right. Oh, I did that backwards. So this should be a phone number. I did the form wrong and it told me it was wrong. So I'll go ahead and submit that. Okay, that's been submitted. I'll go to the admin page. There we go. Okay, so it sorted it properly. It sorted the everything by date and by time. So that field, as expected, became the middle row in my table. So that's really helpful. Bevran says Feb 4th was yesterday. It shouldn't let you do that. Yeah. I would imagine that we could add some additional validation to not allow dates that are prior to today. So yeah, now that we fixed it, let's see if we can, because I don't know how to do that off the top of my head. I'm not sure what would be the best way to do that. So let's see if ChatGPT can help us. I don't know. Maybe it can, maybe it can't. Let's try. So I'm going to say, all right, add validation so that users cannot select a date prior to today. I'm not sure if that's the best way to ask that question, but yeah, let's try it, Beverend. Add validation so that users cannot select a date prior to today. Prior to, what I'm going to say, prior to the current day. Yeah. I don't know where it's going to put the validation. Ah, interesting. Look what it did there. Look what it did there. So to the input box, it added a min value, split out that, so it converted today's date to an ISO string, and then split it at the timestamp. Oh, that's wild. I friggin' love that. So it split it at the timestamp so that you can't select anything, prior to whatever the current day is. Um, nice. So we could have said something like can't select anything prior to the current date and time. Yeah. I guess I didn't know that you could do that for the date picker. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and add that just as a min option in my date picker. Do, 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 do. And the cool thing too, so interesting here. So our input box here for picking a date is actually not EJS. However, what it gave us here is EJS. So I'm wondering how we can do that. I'm thinking. Let me try this. Add validation to the form on the home page so that users cannot select a date prior to the current day. We'll try that. Okay, let's see now. Let's see if it registers that it can't give me EJS because the home page is HTML, right? I can't use EJS in an HTML page, in a static web page. So let's try that. Hmm. So it's giving me a script. Not sure that's going to work. We can try it. We can see. But again, it's giving me EJS. So we'll see. All right, so I'm going to grab this input box. Let's see, how is that different? Well, let's try the first one, the first response. All right. So I think this is not going to work, but we'll drop it in anyway. Where is... Okay, so my input box is here for date. And I'm actually just going to add the min value. Date, min, it's going to be that. Yeah, it's not going to like that. Okay, well, probably going to get an error. That's fine. Yeah. That didn't work. Yeah, the script. No, the script is fine. I think the script is perfectly fine. But it's thinking that we're using EJS when we're actually using HTML. So I think we need. Yeah, it needs a little bit. It's kind of lost. It's kind of lost the thread a little bit. So I think we'll need to give it some more direction, as Rascal stated. So let's see. All right, add. I'm gonna ask the question a different way. So to the on the static homepage, perhaps. I'm gonna give it two clues. I'm gonna say it's a static homepage, so it can't give me EJS, right? We're static with no EJS. Add validation to the form on the static homepage with no EJS, so that users cannot select a date prior to the current day. Let's try that. Okay, there we go. That's what I wanted. So now it's just giving me a script. without the EJS stuff. All right, we'll see if that works. Okay, so I'm going to set my input box back to essentially what it was before, which is just a simple input. I have no idea what this is going to do. We're out in the weeds now. Um, no, no EJS, no soup for you. Yeah. All right, and then I'm going to add a script. Now I'm thinking I should put this at the bottom. I'm going to put just by convention. I'm going to put this script at the bottom um, and save it. See if that does anything. Oh, all right. Okay. So what happens if I try to select? Let's see, what's today? Today is the 5th. What happens if I try to select the 4th? And then I imagine maybe this will happen on submit. We'll see. Just gonna put some random junk in here. Time. Oh, it still put it through. Let's see if I think it probably wrote it to the database. No validation for you. Yeah, it worked. Oh, wait, but the time was valid. Never mind. I'm a dingus. Hang on. I need to actually put in a bad time. Okay, let me try it again without being a dingus, and then we'll see if it works. I gotta be smarter than my own code. It's hard. Wait, oh, but I know I chose Saturday the 4th. All right, I'm gonna try the 1st time, and I'm gonna try, yeah, valid time. Okay. All right. So there can be no ambiguity there. That was 4 days ago. So, nope, no dice. Oh, hang on. I figured out why. I've got a query selector on the wrong object. Yeah. So it's right now it's looking for something called date picker, and my date field is not called that. My date finder is called what? Just date. So let's try that again. All right. Save that. So my script was looking for the wrong object. It was looking for something called date date picker, and I don't have something called that. So let's try again. Document query selector date, which should find my date box. Now it should run this script theoretically. All right. Try that. Oh, and let me actually, no, I need to reload this page. All right. Try again. Aha, look at that. Okay, see the difference. So now that I've got this working, check it out. Now I can't select something prior to today. Those are all grayed out. It will not allow me to select them. So that's exactly what we wanted. That's the validation that we wanted. However, I did have to coach it a little bit to get there, right? I did have to tell it, don't give me an EJS. I don't want EJS. And then I had to modify the script just slightly to make sure it was referencing the correct object or the correct, HTML component there, because mine has a slightly different name. So I did have to change that, but the script that it returned was correct. I just had to like massage things a little bit to get it reading properly. But now it is. So I cannot select a date that is prior to today, which is excellent. I love that validation. That's perfect. And I wonder what happens if I try to type in. So let me try 201. Oh, check that out. If I try to enter a date that is like manually enter it by hand, it's not going to let me do that either. It sends up an alert that says I can't do that. So that's fantastic. So, all right, how did we get here? P Valen says, okay, that's impressive. I know, right? Holy crap. The stuff that this is stuff that, you know, I I said it myself. Like when somebody asked, "Can you just have it so you can't select a date prior to today?" And I was thinking, probably, but I don't know how to do it. And so we just asked ChatGPT to do it for us, and it can. Yeah, I see this, and I agree with that, Pivalin. I see this as a great alternative to Stack Overflow, where you don't have to deal with actual toxic people, because Stack Overflow can get a little spicy sometimes. Um, yeah, it's the next step, right? Instead, you can just have a nice, polite AI that will help you, that will help you with your questions without all the toxicity, right? You can ask the same question a dozen times, and then ChatGPT is not going to get mad at you. So, how did we get here? Um, we, I basically just said the final thing that worked was saying add validation to the form on the static homepage with no EJS, so that users cannot select a date prior to the current day. Yeah. So that's my prompt that I said that I just put in chat there. Pistol Peter says Stack Overflow can be so mean sometimes. Yes, they can. Yep. Downvoting things for no reason and all that. So I don't post there, but I do. I used to Google stuff from Stack Overflow, but now I don't think I'll have to. So yeah, and I am going to share like the entire script of what we went through today in order to build this application. So for those of you who may have just joined us, everything that you see here on the left side of the screen, this entire application, was entirely built using ChatGPT. So all of the CSS, all of the HTML, all of the EJS, all of the server side scripts, um, everything in here was generated. I did not write any of this. All of it was generated using prompts in ChatGPT, um, to create a fully functional dog website for a dog groomer. Obviously the styling is a little sparse right now, but you could absolutely ask ChatGPT to add more styling if you wanted. What this does is it allows you to submit a request for an appointment, submits that to a MongoDB database, and then you can, if I was the groomer, I could click on this admin page here, which then takes me to an EJS page, um, which then displays all the requests sorted by date and time, and then I can go back to the home page as well. Yeah. Soranzo says, "Is that the database cluster that you were talking about sharing?" Database cluster. So the information about my database is stored in an environment variable. So it's not that's not if you were asking about like the script that I pasted in, no, that's not it. The information about my database collection is stored in database connection is stored in an environment variable, which is stored in an environment, a .env file, on my server. And then that is where all of this stuff is written, is to my cluster. Yeah, to my database cluster. That's where everything is written, um, which is, obviously password protected. And, that's where all my collections are. So I don't know if I answered your question or not. Feel free to ask it again. Hey, Interplanet, how's it going? Now we're playing with power tools, right? Yeah, and GitHub also has Copilot. I haven't really used Copilot myself, um, but yeah, my main goal with this stream was to basically just show you, like, yeah, you can build a whole app with ChatGPT, but think about how many times we actually had to intervene and sort of guide ChatGPT to the answer that we wanted. Right? We already had in our head, like, this is where we want to go, and these are the things that I need to get there. Right? I needed cores. I needed .env. I needed to add the URL, Express URL encoder. I needed to specifically tell it to use Mongoose to establish a database connection and to create a schema to save data in the database, right? I needed to guide it to those answers, because what it gave me without specifying that sort of thing is not what I wanted. And you can try it both ways. I would highly suggest you try it. So you could try just general statements like, build me a node and Express server to do this, to do whatever I'm trying to do. Try those general types of statements and see what you get back. And it probably won't be sufficient for what you're trying to do. So you still need a knowledge of how to build these apps and the components that are required in these apps to accomplish your goals. So that's why ChatGPT, at least right now, is not going to take your job. It's a tool. You still have to have the underlying knowledge of how to do these things already, and then you can really just use ChatGPT to make it easier than doing the same thing over and over again. When you're building these apps. So the knowledge needs to be there first, and then you can wield ChatGPT to make your life a lot easier when you're building these apps, especially with CSS, because I hate CSS. And like some folks were saying earlier, you can use ChatGPT for Tailwind. You can use ChatGPT for React. So what actually inspired me to do this stream today was I saw out there was an $85 course on like Udemy or something like that, which teaches you how to build apps using ChatGPT. And I was like, screw that, honestly. I mean, I appreciate the educators that put their stuff on Udemy, but ChatGPT is a free tool. And I feel like there shouldn't be a paywall teaching people how to use this free tool. So that's why I wanted to do this stream today, to hopefully give you a free way to learn the same information, or at least most of the same information that you would have, if you paid $85 to take that course. That's nothing stopping you from doing that. I just want to give you a free alternative as well. Um, let's see. I'm catching up with chat here. Drunk Uncle Grandma says, I still had to go to dusty old documentation recently for Oracle SQL Developer Connection when ChatGPT was down and Stack Overflow had only zingers. Yeah, so sometimes both options will fail you, and you actually have to go read documentation. Boo. Yeah, and Jelly Bean put it in a great way there. They said ChatGPT is more of a helper, not a substitute for basic knowledge. Yeah, you still need to understand the nuance and the context. That's the thing that Rascal has said several times before, and I appreciate is that, yeah, the thing that ChatGPT does not have, that real people do have, is a view of the big picture, of the context of what you're trying to accomplish. So ChatGPT can understand context in the sense of an ongoing conversation, but it still doesn't know what you're trying to do. It doesn't have any foresight into the goal you're trying to get to. Yeah. Yeah, ChatGPT is so GPT-4 is actually coming. So there was that Ars Technica article that I pasted in chat earlier that talks about the history of ChatGPT, and yeah, this is the version we use today is actually GPT 3.5. So it wasn't even a finished version of GPT. The executives wanted them to release something, just get something out there for people to use. They knew they weren't done with GPT-4, so they're like, okay, what do you guys do have? Like, what is it that you do have? And they were like, we can cobble something together. And then they shoved it out the door, and it's 3.5. So it's not even like the latest of what GPT can do. So I cannot wait for GPT-4. Yeah, I'm excited about it. All right, so a couple of last things to do before we wrap up here. Um, I wanted to push this code to GitHub so that anybody who kind of got lost in the sauce or was having trouble getting their stuff working can uh, also, can catch up and maybe hopefully get their stuff working by referencing the existing code. So let's ask ChatGPT. I already know how to do this, but let's see what ChatGPT says. So how do I push this code to GitHub? Let's see what it says. All right, so first it says to install Git, so you can check that off. I've got a GitHub account, check. It's telling me how to create a new repository, perfect. Telling me how to initialize Git as a local repo, how to add the files, how to do a commit, how to set the origin to connect it to the remote GitHub repo, and then how to do the push. So yeah, that's exactly what we need to do. So I'm going to go ahead and go to my repo, or to my GitHub and create a new repo for this. New repo. We'll call it Chat GPT generated app. ChatGPT generated app. Public repo. Go ahead and create the repo. And let's see if we can follow its steps, and let's see if those steps will work. Yeah, so Saranza, the reason I'm pushing this up to GitHub is that, yes, of course, ChatGPT is going to give everybody slightly different results. However, there could be things that are straight up wrong that ChatGPT has said to somebody else. And so that way they can compare their code to my working code and see what might be different. So, all right, I'm going to kill my server here. And in my terminal, I'm going to just go ahead and say git init. All right, and then git add all the files. Oh, I forgot to do my git ignore. Oh no! Oh, that's not good. I didn't do a git ignore. Hang on a sec. I wasn't expecting to push this. Don't forget to do your git ignore, kids. All right. All right, so I want to git ignore. You can blame that on GPT. Yeah, dang it. Yeah, ha. GPT did not say that I needed to do that. Drunk Uncle says using screen to GIF. Oh, nice. That's rad. Yeah. They said that Drunk Uncle said that they switched their image links to GIF links on your web apps. And they use Screen to GIF to do that. Yeah, Screen to GIF is a fantastic free tool for you to easily create GIFs. If you ever see a GIF on my Twitter, it was created using Screen to GIF. So fantastic tool. I'm glad you were able to use it. So I want to ignore my env. .env. Oops. Blech. Me no type good. All right, .env, ignore that. And I want to also ignore node modules. Yeah. Normally I copy this from other apps, so it's weird to think about. So node modules. All right. Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to ask ChatGPT. How do I unadd files from git add? I don't remember how to do that. So I'm going to see if there we go. Git reset. Yay. All right. So to answer the question, I accidentally staged my node modules and my node modules and my env file. So I want to undo that. And so it's telling me that I can use git reset. I got indeed. I could use git reset. So let's try that. I think I've done this before, but I don't remember these things. All right. So yes, so that's perfect. So it says that these are now the files have changed from added to uncommitted. So that seemed to work. So I can do git add now. There we go. That looks better. All right, git add, and then git commit -m initial commit. I'm just following all these steps exactly as written. They've been committed now to the local repo. And so now I'm going to go ahead and do my git remote add origin. And I'm going to grab the URL of the repo that I created. Grab that. I'm going to make this window a little bigger. Sometimes the terminal is a bit funky about not liking me pushing or pasting things into it. Um, so I need to make it big enough so that I can paste the whole file path in there. So boop. Okay, I've pasted it in. GitHub.com, blah, 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 generate app. Oh, I think I need to do .git. Okay. All right. And then git push -u origin, not master. So that's incorrect. So the current terminology for um, repos should be main instead of master. So that's not correct. But close enough. Hey, there we go. It was very close. It was just missing the latest terminology for what we call the main branch on a repo. Yeah. All right. Let me catch up with chat. So just to recap, how we fixed that little blunder that I had where I forgot my git ignore, was I created the git ignore first. I saved it, and then I used git reset. I asked ChatGPT how to do it, and it said git reset. It also told me how to back out specific files if I wanted to do. However, I just backed out everything and then recommitted, and then I just followed the rest of the steps almost as written. So that was really good. All right. Let's see. ChatGPT is better than a rubber duck. Absolutely, I agree. Rezan says, do you have a Git plugin in VS Code? No, I prefer to kind of do things. So, I mean, yeah, obviously I could use the GUI. So there is a GUI here in VS Code that is native to VS Code. It's not a plugin that you have to use. So there is a version control GUI that you can use if you prefer. I generally use the command line, but that's more of a personal preference. So it's really up to you how you do it. Just know that you don't have to really install anything special unless you want to. There are certain plugins such as Git Lens, which can allow you to have even more control over your versions. And I think if you're collaborating with a team, a lot of folks use Git Lens to give them more visibility on past commits and that sort of thing. I can't really speak to it too much, but yeah, so that's something that you could do instead of the command line. Okay. Fun stuff. All right. Oh, last thing I want to do. So it shows added in UI when you add on command line. Yes. So I believe if I were to make a change to one of these files, so if I were to, I don't know, add a comment in admin.js. Oh, I'm gonna do it in a JS file. It's easier to add comments there. All right, I'll do it here. Save that. So I mean that's showing a new change, right? New change on the main branch. Now I can go to the GUI and see it there. So that change is now there. It's showing as ready to be staged. Now I'm going to go ahead and stage it in the command line. So I'm going to do git add. Now, when I did that, did you see the change? It might have been hard to see. But as soon as I staged it in the command line, it now shows that it's been staged in the GUI. So yes, they do stay in sync. Yeah. Now if I do git reset, that should unstage it. Yeah. And it unstaged it in the GUI as well. So either way you want to do it is fine. I generally use the command line. I found that the GUI is a little slower. So it tends to have quite a delay when you're committing things and stuff like that, and I just don't like the delay, so I just use the command line because it's faster. But it's up to you. Last thing is I said I was going to share the script that kind of the general guidelines that I followed today when I was working on building this from scratch. So I think I'm just going to go ahead and go into the repo, and let's see, I'm going to add a README and just drop the general script in there. Hopefully that's okay for folks. Um, these are the prompts that I followed. Um, Below are the prompts that I entered into Chat GPT to generate this app. Your results may vary. And I'll add a couple of the additional things that we kind of tacked on to the end there. Um, so let me scroll up a little bit. I just want to add that additional thing about the validation. So the table on the admin page. So I'll add this thing about banded rows and borders, adding a link back to the homepage. Add that in there. Um, and also the validation for the date picker with the correct results. So add validation. There's this one here. Yeah. All right. I'll commit the file. All right. So now in the README on the repo, the um, you should see all of the prompts in the README. I will also, here is the link to the repo. Spam it a couple times. There you go. If you do want to look at it, however, I would highly suggest trying this yourself in ChatGPT. Just do it. See what you get. Build your own. Come up with an idea for an app, that you want to build, and guide yourself through it using ChatGPT. And just they'll sometimes it won't give you what you want, and so then just revise your request. Like I say, this was the third time, or sorry, no, this was the fourth time that I actually built this app using ChatGPT, and it turned out different every single time. Some general pointers is that you can, once ChatGPT gives you a response and you want to change something about it, just say like update, I don't know, update the form to have such and such, or update the styling to have such and such. So you can tell it to just update certain elements as you go, as you try them and want something different. Russell says that when you're working with the GitHub GUI, it's not a delay; it's a mandated mini break brought to you by Microsoft. Yeah, it's for your health, right? Yeah. So, any last questions before we wrap up for today? This was so much fun, and I can definitely see myself, um, coming up with ideas and then using Chat GPT to bring those ideas to life a lot faster than I could by copying and pasting or typing things out, especially styling wise. Next thing, what I want to do, and I'd be curious if anybody's interested in this, is potentially exploring using ChatGPT with React, um, to generate some React components and stuff like that. I would need to think about what I want to build, but would you guys be interested in seeing something similar to this but using React? I'm genuinely, if not, that's fine. I'll do it for myself and I won't stream it, but just curious. Yeah. Rascal says, yep, GPT is pretty good at React or anything popular, right? Because it has a lot of reference material. Yeah. Okay, so I'm seeing some yeses there. Also, too, I do want to share again this wonderful article by Ars Technica, about the history of how we got here. So, how did we get to the point where we can do things like this in what is ostensibly a chatbot, right? Like, how did we get to the point where ChatGPT is so capable as it currently is? So, I would highly suggest you checking out that article. I really enjoyed it, and it gave me a lot of context about how we got here. Another thing is too, you can see I have a conversation here on the left with ChatGPT, just asking it. After I read the article, I was like, well, maybe I should ask ChatGPT the same question and see if it can tell me, um, a little bit about its history. And it was able to do that as well as how it works, how it's trained, um, yeah, where it's going, all that. I was able to ask ChatGPT those questions as well. Okay, so I'm seeing some interest in a potential um, React Chat GPT stream. So I had so much fun doing this one. We might go ahead and do another one. I don't know, maybe next week, or maybe I'll do something different next week and then come back to this. I don't know yet. But yeah, this was baller. Thank you, Drunk Uncle. Another thing too, just for next week, something to think about is I do have another foster kitten. So I know I should have mentioned that sooner, but I do have another foster kitten, and she is very cute. So if you want to spend those channel points to, one, see her on cam, or two, name her, pick a name for her, you are welcome to do so. Just save those, and then in the next stream, if you want to redeem that, you absolutely can. I just have one kiddo this time, so only one person gets the opportunity to name her, but she is very cute. So look forward to that. Right. Oh yeah, and if you want to just learn more about React in general, Rascal 2 has some excellent, a bunch of excellent videos on uh, upgrading apps with React. So I would highly suggest checking that out. Yeah. Okay. All right. All right. Let's last thing. Let's say. All right. Is what are some mm, interesting names for a female kitten uh, that is gray and white? So you notice I started a new chat there because I didn't want ChatGPT trying to get confused as to why we suddenly switched topics. So those are pretty good names: Silver, Stormy, Pearl, Smoky, Shadow, Misty, Ash, Onyx, Galaxy, and Dove. Those are pretty good. But you know, if you choose a name, like if you choose to redeem those channel points to name this kitten, you don't have to use any of those. It can be whatever name you want as long as it's not profane, right? Inappropriate. Hassler says, "Oh, good. They said they feel like a senior dev now." Well, thank you. I'm glad that I appreciate your support, and I appreciate that. And I'm glad you feel like you can do whatever you want, and that you can build great things and do great things, because so many of us can, but we don't have the confidence to do so. So I hope that I'm glad that this gave you a little bit of confidence and that you're feeling good about yourself. Um, and because I'm feeling good about you all. So incoming kitty named Propane. Hank Hill, propane and propane accessories. Yeah, that was a good show. Hey, Crunchy, good to see you. We are just wrapping up the stream now, but let's go ahead and find somebody to raid. If you missed the majority of today's stream, anybody that just joined us, I would highly suggest watching it from the beginning, because we had a blast today. We built a fully functioning full stack app um, using only code generated by ChatGPT. So we got to see not only the capabilities of ChatGPT to build us a full stack app, but also some of the limitations and why ChatGPT is not going to take your job. It's incredibly capable, but in the end, it's just a tool. And you, as being the developer, you have the power to wield that tool successfully when you have the knowledge to do so. So, no, you are not going to lose your job to ChatGPT. However, you will save time writing code. Boomhauer, yeah, random Boomhauer. Good, Bombaloni. I'm glad you liked it. All right, let's go ahead and find somebody to raid, as we usually like to do at the end of these streams. So I'm going to pull up my little rady window here in another on my other screen for 1 second. Alrighty, getting it pulled up. One more minute. Okay, let's see who is online and doing interesting things. Um, yeah, so we've got our good friend CM Griffing, Purple Elf, Team Vash. So some of the usual folks that are on after me. We also have Herr Hotzenplotz, which is somebody that I just started following recently. I just went around and tried to find uh, more small streamers to follow. Right, got to support the small streamer community, and so they're a new one as well. But if anybody else has any suggestions, somebody they would like to see us raid, preferably in the software and game development space, feel free to suggest them. Otherwise, I will pick one of the folks on this list. One of these four folks right here. Thank you, Jelly Bean. Good to see you here today. So, any suggestions or any suggestions on which of these four folks we should pick? Itzo says, "You think I can build a chat GPT to explain the code that I used to build it?" Wow, that's deep, man. It's like recursive. Well, what we saw earlier is that you can take your code and then have chat GPT just add comments to it. So, yeah, you could if you have some code for an app that's like a chat bot, you could dump it into chat GPT and then have it comment on it and explain it to you. Fractal thoughts indeed. All right. Um, let's go ahead and hit up CM Griffing. I think we haven't done them in a while. Um, Sky is the limit for GPT, absolutely. Yeah, let's go ahead and give them a raid. Haven't hit them up in a while. They look like they're working on something interesting. Um, and they're always a good time. So, all right. Well, folks, I appreciate you spending time here with me today. Um, oh yeah, and Rascal dropping some knowledge there. You can tell ChatGPT to write it more readable, write tests. Yeah, absolutely. There's all sorts of auxiliary things that you can do. Have it write unit tests. You can have it write comments, make the code prettier, more readable, that kind of thing too. So the sky's the limit. Please go out there, get on ChatGPT, and just have some fun with it. Just try stuff, fail, and then try it again. That's all I ask. So I hope you have a great rest of your weekend. Gonna go ahead and start the raid. Thank you all for joining me today. I had fun. I hope you did too. And I can't wait to see what y'all build going forward. So, all right. See you later. Have a great evening. See you next week.